Greetings, Quester, and welcome to the Meddlesome Meeples. Grab an ale, sheathe your axe, and join us fireside. Here's your host, Matt Williams, with Richard and Heather.
Welcome to this episode of the Meddlesome Meeples. I'm Matt.
I'm Richard.
I'm Heather.
So, Richard, what games are we talking about this week?
We are going to be talking about Biblios and also Multiuniversum, which I have to read to get it right.
It's not a difficult one to say, but it's one you have to think about just before you say it.
Yeah, there's so many variants that it could be. That's the trouble.
Multiverse.
When I picked it up, I looked at it and thought, oh, it's Multiuniversum.
Oh.
Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. No, it's Multiuniversum.
It still doesn't make sense, but it is correct. So,
Yeah. You can see what they were going for, multi-universes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with an M, UM at the end. Okay.
Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about in our board game section. Heather.
We're talking about music.
Yeah, we're going to be talking in the...
We're doing the same thing we do every week.
Didn't you record it like a few minutes ago? Or
Yeah.
thought you might remember the bands or something.
Doing the same
Yep,
thing
this
every
week-
Pinky.
In this week's Meddlesome Meeples, on our music section, Heather and I are going to be talking about new albums from Saxon, DaVinci, Lionheart, Warner Drive,
Quite a few this week.
and Mr. Big. Their new album coming out next month.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Richard's going to be talking about one of his recent reads,
Yep.
Dan Simmons' book, Hyperion.
Hyperion.
Yep. And also, we are going to be bringing another big issue to the fore in Tiny Meeple's Big Talk. And we're going to be talking about Stargate SG-1 and alternative uses for the Stargate.
And also just stuff O'Neill did.
Well, it was kind of started off
You
with
could have a
stuff
whole
O'Neill
episode
did.
just that.
Yeah.
It was going to be kind of O'Neill's best moments, and then we just ended up talking about all the characters and just generally didn't.
You just have the best catchphrases in like really bad situations.
Yeah,
He
this
is-
is what you need sometimes.
Yeah.
O'Neill is pretty great, so
Yeah.
that's going to be our show. We hope you enjoy that as we get to it. What's everyone been doing this week?
I've been on Riser quite a lot, just because it's summer
Okay.
and it's the Loader Night Festival. So yeah, that's on Star Trek Online, by the way. But I always like it when it's that. Be there and be square.
Yeah, cool.
I'm just thinking, what did I do this week?
Yeah, we went on a road trip, didn't we? We went to fetch your sister from Wales.
Yeah, that was
fun. And I've released a new book again. This one's quite boring.
Advertisement.
Every week.
Unashamed.
An introduction to teaching and assessment for anyone who cares. Not that anybody cares about my life.
I sure don't.
No.
Nah.
People are just here for the meeples. So let's get on with the show.
Okay, it's over there.
So we thought we'd talk about one of the games that we picked up at the Expo. We played at the Expo this week. And that's a game called Biblios. Now, Biblios is a game, it's a short game, only about 20-30 minutes long,
Yeah.
for 2 to 4 players. And the objective of this is to be the one with the best documents, the best sort of monastery library.
Yeah, by the one, you mean the monk who
Yeah.
has the best
Because each player is the head of a monastery, trying to get the best and the rarest documents. So the way that you do that is by collecting documents from 5 different categories, and they're just essentially colour-coded. They are different kinds of text and things, but
Yeah.
effectively, all you're looking at here is the colours on the cards and the number on the cards to represent the card
They
value.
do have general themes, don't they?
They
Like,
do.
The orange ones are kind of like scrolls. Yeah.
I mean, I quite like the theme, but I think some people might find it off-putting. But it's kind of irrelevant because the game itself is so it's themed, but it's not thematic. All you're doing is you're trying to get the best hand of cards.
But the artwork's very nice, though, isn't it?
It is nice, and I like the way that the box is like a little book that you open.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
I quite like that. There's a couple of games like that, and I always like that sort of thing. And so basically, during the game, on your turn, you're going to be drawing some cards, aren't you, from a deck?
Yep.
You're going to be drawing. Say you're playing 4 players, 5 cards. If it was 3 players, it'd be 4 cards. And what you do is you pick one of those cards to keep yourself. You put one into an auction pile for later.
Yeah.
And the other 3 you'd put face out for the other 3 players to take. But you can only draw and look at a card one at a time, and you have to look and decide what you're going to do with it as you draw it and look at it. So you might draw a card and think, this one looks okay, but I don't know if there's going to be a better card to come later or if there's a worse card to come. So
it's like half like drafting in a way, but you get to decide. You kind of get dibs on one of them, don't you?
Yeah.
Basically, but only one.
Yeah, and you can't when you've drawn all 5. You can't then go, actually, I want to change this around. You've got to put one away to the auction pile. You've got to take one, and you've got to put 3 out, all done one at a time. And that's actually probably the most interesting part of the game for me.
Yeah, I liked that. Yeah, you kind of going around the table doing that.
And once the decks ran out, you're then going to be going through the auction pile, one card at a time, aren't you? And then you can bid. Now, there are other text and document cards, which are the 5 categories we mentioned earlier. So brown, blue, green, ochre, and red. But then there are also gold cards in values of 1, 2, or 3. So during the auction phase, what you're going to
money gold,
gold. So during the auction phase, what you're then going to do is you're going to be revealing a card one at a time, and you're going to bid on that card. And if it's a document card, you're going to bid on it using gold from the cards you've got.
Yeah.
And if it's a gold card, you're going to bid on it using cards, which we typically put in face down, don't you, so other people don't see it. But if say you bid 4 on a gold card, you'd be discarding 4 cards, which would be, they could be other gold cards, they could be document cards.
Face down, aren't they? So you don't have to reveal what you gave away. It's just numbers of cards, really.
But one of the cards that you'll be drawing, and you play it as soon as you acquire it, is like a bishop type card, isn't it? And what that does
is a guy shouting normally from a pulpit.
And that allows you to modify, because there's 5 dice, 1 for each colour, and they all start off at 3. And with those bishop cards, you can either raise the value of a dice by 1, deduct the value of a dice by 1, but then there's a few cards that will let you raise 2 cards by 1 or 1 by 2,
or raise 1 and deduct 1, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and they're quite interesting. So the values of the sets that you've got will change. At the end, the person that's got the most value in the cards will score the number that's on the dice.
Basically, this is the score that you are playing for in each category. And I quite like these dice. They're quite big, and like I say, they're all in the different colours. When I first saw this, I assumed that we would be rolling these dice. It's just nice to have dice that we're not rolling, and they are proper. They're just normal D6s, but we are just using them to indicate a number, aren't we? And you just turn them around to kind of, like, if it starts out as a 3, and if you get one to raise a number, then you just turn it around and find the 4 and then put it back down. So basically, if you are trying to collect the cards, like books from a certain colour, then it's in your interest to try and raise that particular die. And when
maybe
we
lower
first played
the ones that you're not collecting as well to make them less valuable.
I thought it was interesting when we first played it. You really bluffed us, didn't you? Because you kept raising green, and we thought, oh, you've got loads of green. But he was actually just trying to distract us, and it worked. The bluff worked, but it did nothing to help you win.
I'd successfully achieved my aim of trying to trick everybody to think I was collecting green, and I think actually I was collecting red and blue or something like that. But everyone was then trying to spend their dice to lower the green, and that's what I was trying to do. So that
somebody else won green in the end, and they got loads of points.
And
I
didn't win.
Kind of things happen. But like, I love the way there's more to do in a game than just out and out try to win. There's just cool little ways you can trick people and stuff. I thought that was really good.
What was interesting as well, because obviously there's different values on the cards, but there were ones that people just weren't bothering to go for particularly. So like somebody won several points from just having like a couple of brown cards that they hadn't really been trying to collect.
Oh yeah, you can win with one card of that colour if nobody else has got any. Because some of them there isn't many of, is there? And which way does it go?
Amounts.
Is it the brown and blue there wasn't many of?
I can tell you. It
says it on there. We don't need all the numbers, just which one doesn't have many. I think it's red, isn't it? Red's got the least.
Red's got a lot of low value cards.
Yeah, that might be it.
Whereas the brown and the blues tend to have more higher value numbers.
Now, when you are playing a game,
you're going to discard some of these cards randomly.
Some of these cards are randomly not going to be there. So you can't just look at the number of books that exist
Yeah.
and think, oh, well, I've got several of these, so there's going to be no more. It's like there could be no more, or there could be a lot more. You just don't know which ones have been left in the box for that particular game. So that adds a nice little unpredictable element to it there. The other thing I like about it is the auction phase, as you were talking about, where you use gold cards to buy the leftover books, basically. I like the fact that when a gold card turns up in that phase, you are using cards to buy the gold. So it's both buying and selling books in a way.
Well, it's
I
kind
know
of
it doesn't
interesting.
have to be books, but yeah.
Because for me, when I've played, because we've played this a few times now, and in some of the games I played, it completely changed my strategy during the auction phase. Because I thought, okay, well, I've got maybe a good hard card in blue, for example. But then I saw other people outbidding me on blue and thought, well, I can't afford to spend any more.
Yeah.
And now I'm probably not going to... These aren't going to be as valuable to me because I'm sure someone else has got more.
Right,
And then I've traded them into gold to try and buy another colour.
Yeah.
To improve my chances with something else. So the auction phase can change what you're doing, and that, I like that kind of thing in a game. As we said, I like the theme of it because I like old documents. I like the way that the box represents a book. The cards are quite nice. It's just a nice, light 20 to 30 minute game for me that I could probably pull out and play quite happily any time.
Yeah, it was our friend Ryan who bought this at the expo, and then one of the evenings, we'd been up quite late, hadn't we, that night, and we
were playing in the hotel bar at midnight, I think, and we
we'd
decided
been
to get this out.
hanging around in the room, hadn't we, and then we just went down to the bar, and Ryan just explained to us how to play Biblios, and it didn't take too long, did it? And it was just nice to play just at that bar table. So it's a nice game that, like, it's a little bit counterintuitive to learn at first, I think, but after a few rounds people get to know it. But then people need to know how to do the kind of half drafting, half just choosing cards bit at the start, and then they need to learn again for the auction bit, which is very different again. But I think by the time you've played it once, then you have a very good grasp of how to do it.
You only ever need to know this once to know basically all there is to know about the game, and then after that it's just deciding which sets you're going to try and go for, trying to work out when you're drawing those cards which ones you think are going to be good to keep and which ones not. I mean, sometimes you just keep the one that you think, well, this isn't a bad card, because you don't if you could put it down, someone else could get it and you could end up with a bit of a dud later. But it's kind of like a push your luck style element in that mechanic, so that you don't know if you pass up on a half decent card, you might get a better one later. And I've done that, and I've ended up getting a really good card that's really helped me later on in the game. But then other times I've done that and I've ended up with like a gold of 1 or something like that. And it's not always a big help.
There were some times when I was waiting until the last card of the 5 that I was going to draw, and that was going to be the one I was going to keep, because then you've got no choice at that point. And then it was like a blue 4 or something, and I thought, oh great, glad they did that.
So, I mean, overall, what was your final thoughts on this game, Richard?
I think it's a very nice small game. I think a lot of people would play it. I think sometimes it's a little bit like a Euro game, but not quite. There's no like fighting or anything. There's not really anything that family members might object to if you got it out.
Very family friendly, isn't it?
That's what I kind of think. So I think it's a nice, safe game that you could bring out in a variety of circumstances. Like if you had people round, it doesn't really matter who they are. I think they would at least play it. And they would most probably enjoy it. And how many players is it? 2 to 4.
2 to 4.
Yeah, I think that's a nice number as well. I mean, obviously there are some light games that include more players, but I think if you did have 4 people, then I don't think there's going to be many circumstances where people wouldn't do this. I mean, you're going to have time, and people are going to have the inclination, I think.
And I do, as I say, I think it looks nice. The cards, the artwork and everything is all very nice, and I like the theme of it. I know some people haven't particularly liked the theme, but I think that people have rethemed the game. So I think there's a version, I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it, a version that someone made where instead of like having the monasteries and the old documents, you are a comic book store and you're trying to get the rare comic books.
Right.
And
I would definitely prefer this, but yeah, I can see some people might like
I think I would like the other one, but actually I'm quite happy with this the way it is. I quite like it because this to me is quite unique. There's not, off the top of my head, I couldn't really think of another game in this same mold. I mean, the only one that comes close, and it's again because it's to do with documents and books, is Paperback, and that as a game is completely different to this. It's just like it's
just
mildly
the theme,
connected by a theme,
It's
and
more
there's
the
just not
mechanic that's different.
yeah
in
there's
this,
just
isn't
not
it?
many games out there that are about books and old documents, and boring old me, I do like those things. So this is something that for me I'm quite pleased to have. I mean, we played it, as you said, with Ryan on the Saturday evening at the
Simon,
hotel,
yeah.
and Whittam, and on the Sunday we were going around looking for a copy at the expo.
Yes.
And that's where we then picked up from the same store that had this, because we went to several stores and they didn't have it. We found it.
I thought it was funny that you were going around trying to find Biblios when before people weren't buying it so much.
Yeah. And then
It became popular.
Somehow it became popular. It was Bar Night Gaming that made it popular.
Yeah.
But then we also found another game which we'll be talking about on our next segment of the Quest Report, Multiuniversum.
Yes, because
from the same store.
We did a Quest of Universum as well, so
Yeah.
we have to talk about that.
So
Multiuniversum, sorry.
So we hope you enjoyed this. Definitely want to check out Biblios, a light, family-friendly game. We enjoyed it. We hope you do too.
Yeah, save the books. Multiuniversum, and that is again quite a small game. We were talking about Biblios a little bit earlier, and this one, I would say it's not quite as light as that. You need a little bit more table to play it, and it has a few more. I don't think it has more components actually. It's just a lot of cards, and instead of having dice, you've got meeples. There's us.
And we always like meeples.
Yeah. So these meeples are your scientists, and you also have 5 cards which represent transformers, and these are these massive things with lightning coming out of them.
Yep.
The artwork on this is very great as well. And you basically put these round in a circle, and these are the things that generate portals into another reality. And the other cards that you have are basically other realities, and these are pretty weird.
Some of the artwork on these is beautiful though. I mean, there's like
It is.
one with a alien killer, what looks like a gummy bear.
Yeah, alien killer gummy bear with a big knife covered in blood.
There's a robot dinosaur.
There is a volcano with a face. So basically, if you were thinking of opening portals into other realities, like infinite universes, this is the kind of stuff you would have to expect.
Yeah. They basically started with the weird universes first, haven't
All
they?
kinds of craziness are in there.
But the artwork on these cards is amazing, because I mean, there's other cards that look fairly standard, like the action cards.
Well, these
which
are just symbols of stuff you can do, basically.
And the Transformer cards and the Lab cards, they're basically the same image on each one, except that the colour's different. So that
corresponds to each meeple scientist.
But this is a really interesting game. It's kind of reminded me of a Lovecraftian style game in the sense that you're trying to close these portals.
Not quite so Victorian as that.
No, it's more futuristic. And of course your Transformers generate the areas that you're going to be moving around during the game.
Well, yeah, the Transformers are places you can go, aren't they? You use action cards to do that.
Yep. And then you use action cards to take an action
Yeah,
once you're there.
There are several actions. It's pretty weird. You have to have an action card where the symbol of what you want to do is on the right colour.
Yeah.
And that is the bit that's difficult to keep track of, I found.
because when you go to a place, the only possible actions that are there, apart from you can just discard a card and take a new card from the top of the action card stack, which counts as one of your actions. Everything else, you have to have the you can only use the symbols that are in the right place on the cards you've got, which made it interesting. It meant that I was having to think a lot about what my next action was going to be, because ultimately your objective in this game is to move around and close these portals. Now there's 20 portal cards in the game, and you assign 4 to each of the 5 transformers.
So basically each one keeps changing to different places, doesn't it?
Yeah, because some of the actions that you can take will allow you to literally take a stack of the portal cards from one transformer and move them over to another transformer, so things can change a fair
but even
bit.
that when you close one, like there's another one right underneath it, so it's like opens to a different place. I think that's pretty cool.
You can also alter it's almost like you're reprogramming the portal machine, because you can reorder certain places, allow you to reorder the stack of them there, so that if you think, oh well, I really want to do that mission but it's further down, you can then bring that back to the top and close that portal.
Yeah, it did feel like that to me as well. It felt like there were portals going to different places, because these cards, you probably can't quite see them, but Matt will probably put a picture up, but they've got the border of them is kind of like hazy, isn't it? It is like you're viewing that through a portal. So.
And you're trying to close these portals, and you score points for closing portals. Now each portal card will have a value in the top left hand corner that tells you how many points that portal's worth at the end of the game. But there are also sets, so you can get like an Omni set, which is where you make a set of 5 different portal symbols, which are in the bottom left hand corner.
So they're different to the points, aren't they?
Yeah, they're separate to the points, but they give you points at the end of the game, because if you've got 5 separate ones, then you get like it's called an Omni set, and you get 9 points for each of the sets that you can make with 5 different ones. But there's also a specialist set, which you can do for having you get points for having 2 or more portals with the same portal symbol at the bottom, and you get points for that as well. So there's different ways of getting bonuses at the end. You can also get points deducted at the end, because one of the things that you can do as an action,
if you've got leftover tools, isn't it?
Because you're dealt 3 action cards at the beginning of the game, and you will acquire more cards either through actions during your turn, or at the end of your turn. If you've got less than 3 action cards in hand, you draw back up to 3. One of the things you can do with these, as well as the action symbols, they have a tool symbol. Now, to close a portal down, you need to be at the right transformer, use the closing portal symbol, which is like a little shimmery wormhole, isn't it? On the action card.
Thing we were calling it.
We called it a swirly, yeah. And then you have to spend the tools that are under your lab card that correspond to the same symbols on that portal card.
So for the gummy bear one, you'd need 1 of the nuclear symbol and 1 of the microscope.
Yeah. So on the action cards, you'll have those symbols, but what you have to do is you use one of those cards as a tool by putting it under your lab. So you've got a tool ready to use, and then you spend that from your lab to close the portals. So it's fairly simple, fairly straightforward. But sometimes it's a case of trying to find the right cards to do that. A, to move, B, to have the portal action card, and then the tools. So you're kind of having to think a lot about your upcoming round.
You have to work hard for your Nobel Prize.
Yeah, because the person that gets the most points at the end wins the game and gets a Nobel Prize. But one of the things you can do is take a recycling action, which is the recycling symbol on the action card. And with that, you are discarding a card as an action, but then you get to go through the discard pile and take any card you want. So you can look and think, right, well, I need this symbol or I need that symbol.
Yeah, that was a useful one.
That was a very useful action. I was having to do that a lot so that I could get what I need to then go and do what I want. So it's a short game, probably 30 minutes to 40 minutes with 3 players.
How long
I think
did it take
fair.
us? It was
about 35, 40.
Yeah, it was 3-player, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 3-player, and I think that's probably a fairly decent time. I think once we know better what we're doing, we'll get it down to probably about 30 minutes.
Players 1 to 5.
That's
quite good. You can do it solo.
You can do it solo. That's a very good element. We haven't tried it solo yet. But
you could do that at any time.
Yeah, I will be playing that solo because I quite enjoyed this game. And as I say, the scoring of it at the end is fairly simple. The mechanics of it are fairly simple. The only thing that was catching us out was some of the symbols. We were having to think, okay, what does this symbol on the transformer do?
We just
because
had
the Transformers have their own abilities that you can use.
Yeah.
As well as the cards you've got in your hand. You can play an action card that allows you to use the Transformer ability.
Mm-hmm.
And so that we were having to keep thinking, okay, what does this symbol mean? But by the end of the game, we knew what we were doing. So next time we play that, we'll be able to shave the time down. But I really enjoyed the game.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, you got to think as well about what tools you've got, because you can't just get to the end of your turn and go, well, actually, I've got these cards. I'll just use this as a tool, and then just refill my hand, because if you end up with a load of tool cards that are going to cost you points at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So there is strategy in this.
Yeah.
And it's always nice to be able to move a meeple around the board.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this game. This is going in my travel bag when we go away next, as to play around the pub table again.
Yeah, we do need those kind of games.
So this is one that I would personally recommend. Richard, what are your final thoughts?
I like the artwork a lot more than I like the actual game, but it is fun to do. I just think it might be a little bit overcomplicated, kind of, for what you're actually doing. But we'll have to see in subsequent games, kind of, if that does get a little bit easier. I think it's one of those ones that's very difficult to think ahead with. I suppose
because other players' actions can change what your options are as
well,
can't they?
Yeah, and it's also, it's just, I didn't quite understand about the sets like you were talking about. So you have the points symbol, so that's how much data you actually get from closing that portal. But then you have the symbol, like it could be a leaf or a diamond or some bacteria or an asteroid or a tentacle, and those are like suits basically.
Yeah,
so you put those together.
I don't think that's in with the keeping of the theme of the game, because everything, the pictures on there, they're nice, but they don't actually relate to the game at all. It's just the place
Not
you
so
shut
much.
them down.
I mean,
and neither do the symbols. They don't. When you look at the sets, they don't seem to relate one portal to another.
Not really.
It's
so
just
it's
a way of scoring, isn't it?
A little bit hard to keep track of things like that. But I do like a game that's got a strong theme, and this really does. I think if the artwork had been cartoony or something, then I really wouldn't like this game. But because it does look like it's got a lot of depth and a lot of imagination, and you can get a little bit immersed in it for saying it's such a small game, I like that aspect of it. And it is one that I do like, but out of the two small games that we got and that we talked about today, I think I would prefer Biblios. Just for kind of what they are. And we're just talking about games that we kind of take places. But yeah, no, I did really enjoy this one. But it's mostly, for me, it was just how beautiful all the artwork is and how imaginative it is.
It is a really beautiful game to look at, and there's the expansion for this is, as you can probably have guessed, with it being a game about closing portals, there's a Cthulhu expansion for this. A Lovecraftian expansion, which we haven't got yet, but it is on order, so I'm sure we'll probably be talking about that one at a later time.
Yeah, we can see kind of not only what the expansion's like, but what it's like to play this once you're really used to it. So, yeah.
And I think the main thing with the difference with that expansion is the fact, I mean, I haven't looked through it yet because it's not arrived yet, but from what I can gather, the portals are just Lovecraftian themed, but you get, when you close a portal, there is a sanity penalty.
There always,
so
people went insane a lot back then.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to trying that out. But yeah, I mean, obviously myself and Richard both got different views on the game, but we both enjoyed playing it. I personally highly recommend it. There are some of the pictures I possibly wouldn't want to play this with a child. For example, there's one that's quite a high value one that looks like a bit Lovecraftian, but you've got like a decapitated living hand with an eye in it, and for example, I wouldn't necessarily want to play that with my 8-year-old.
There's lots of eyes where there should not be eyes in this game.
But for me and Richard, or me and the lads, me and Heather, we quite probably will like that and appreciate the art, but I wouldn't play it with kids. But there are, again, even some sci-fi bases, some beautiful artwork. It's not all horror, but all of these portals do need to go.
Yeah.
And so do we. So thank you for joining us. I personally am recommending Multiuniversum as a great little game, and the fact it has solo play, I think, will endear it to more people too.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, welcome to the Bard's Corner.
We've got a few things to go through this week.
A lot of things.
First off, we're going to talk about some upcoming releases that have just been announced. So first off, it's kind of a blast from the past episode this week, because a lot of these bands are either old bands or returning bands. So first off, we've got Saxon. They have just announced a new box set called the Solid Book of Rock. Now this is going to...
sounds funny.
The Solid Book of Rock is going to contain all of the studio albums released between 1991 and 2009, plus there's going to be bonus tracks as well. That's out on the 4th of August. Now the albums that are going to comprise this box set is Solid Ball of Rock, Forever Free, Dogs of War, Unleash the Beast, Metalhead, Killing Ground, Lionheart, The Inner Sanctum, and Into the Labyrinth. So altogether this set is going to comprise 11 CDs plus 3 DVDs, and that's going to be out in a 12x12 book, as opposed to a typical box set.
That sounds pretty cool.
So yeah, that sounds like it'll be pretty good. So that's going to be out, as I say, on the 4th of August. Then a band from Norway have returned, DaVinci. They've got an album coming out called Ambition Rocks.
I've not heard of them, I have to admit.
Yeah,
I'm surprised.
These are an older band. It's the first album they've released in about 25 years.
You're reminding me of my youth. I'm 5 years younger than you, dude.
Yeah, it was a very formative 5 years musically for me. So yeah, Ambitious Rocks is the first album in 25 years. Their previous albums was the self-titled album DaVinci, and also Back in the Business. They split up in 1993, but they're bringing out this album through AOR Heaven on August the 25th. Now, I've not had a chance to listen to the full album. I've had what I call a preliminary listen prior to doing the main review. So listen to about half the album that way. There is some pretty good songs on there. It sounds like it's a pretty good album. Very much a return to form to their early albums, if you're familiar with those. If not,
I was 4.
yeah. If you're not familiar with their early work, then think TNT and Stage Dolls, and you'll be in the right ballpark.
Yeah.
Okay. As well as that, another blast from the past, Lionheart.
Yay.
Second Nature. Now, they were around between, I think, in 81 they first appeared. Started to disappear around about 86. So they were around for a few years. During that time, they played support to bands like Whitesnake and Def Leppard, a British rock band. They reunited in 2016. This was they were asked to play Rockingham in Nottingham by David Harron, the promoter, and he managed to get pretty much the original lineup.
That's cool.
Minus Chad Brown, who'd been the lead singer. But fortune favours the bold, and they got a new singer, Lee Small. Now, Lee Small had quite a stint with Shy. He played as their lead singer from 2006 to 2013, and they experienced quite a bit of success. Some people name some of those albums as amongst their best work. This was when Tony Mills had left Shy, so
This might be a good thing.
well, I like Lee Small. I've got some of those Shy albums, and he's a good singer. So Lionheart, a very talented band. They consist of current and former members of Iron Maiden, UFO, MSG, the Michael Schenker group, and Shy. In fact, back in the heyday, Sounds magazine described them as the first new wave of British heavy metal supergroup. So they've got quite a good pedigree.
Yep.
Israeli prog metal group, Soul Enema, is a female-fronted project.
Sorry, that sounds really funny.
Soul Enema.
Yeah.
That's tickled you, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a bit juvenile.
Well, they've got a new album out of Clans and Clones and Clowns.
and
Soul Enema of Clans and Clones and you've got me going now.
Sorry.
Soul Enema of Clans and Clones and Clowns. A little bit of a tongue twister for you today.
Not colons.
No, you say it. Go on.
Clans, clones, and clowns.
Yep, Clans,
See,
Clones and
dead
Clowns.
easy.
Well, it's of Clans and Clones and Clowns, so we both got it
it's
wrong.
the of that throws you.
Yeah. Now, this album was actually out on the 23rd of June, so it will be out
Yep.
now. However, they premiered the album by streaming it in conjunction with Progsphere, and you can still listen to the full album free. We'll add the link into the description so that you can check that out if you like. So they've got some guest musicians on that album as well, guest contributions. Now, the biggest name there is Arjen Anthony Lucassen, best known for his work with Arion. So, very good, very talented musician. I love his Star 1 project that he did. We were listening to some of that the other day in the car, weren't we?
Yes, that's where I don't want to admit it, but I recognised the name and I was like,
Arjen Anthony Lucassen, Star 1.
I don't know why I was thinking of
Floor
Rhapsody.
Jansen,
Totally
Russell
opposite.
Allen, Damien Wilson, yeah.
Yeah.
Very fantastic project, fantastic musician. He appears on that album. That's the reason that this album came up on my radar. So I've only listened to a couple of tracks off that, but it was interesting, a bit unusual. But we'll add the link in so you can have a listen for that yourself.
Radar.
Right, couple of radar. Things cross my radar. Things cross my desk. So we've got a couple of albums that we're going to talk to you about today. The first one was Warner Drive, Till the Wheels Fall Off. Now that's out on the 28th of July through Dead End Exit Records. It's their fourth album. This is the one you were listening to with me the other day.
Fourth.
Yep. So what did you think of that?
I thought it was funny.
You thought it was funny?
I did. Sorry, that's very technical. No, I liked it. I did like it. It was really easy to listen to, but don't know if I'd own it.
Well, Warner Drive are an original group from Hollywood. They've shared the stage with people like Rat, Steel Panther, Papa Roach and the Killers, and they've been touring internationally for years, so they've got themselves quite a reputation from that touring base. It's kind of like punk rock. Best way I can describe it is probably Blink-182 and Bad News had a baby and they left it to be raised by Spinal Tap.
It was ugly. No, it was good. I think if it was on, like, if you went to someone's house and it was on, you'd probably sit there and have a bit of a laugh, and it was great. But I wouldn't want to just put it on over and over again. There's
a few songs on there. The ones that particularly stood out to me was Don't Give Up, Karma's a Bitch, Anthem of the Douche, and LA Psycho Chick.
Couple of beers, it'll be hilarious.
There's a lot of humour in that album. The guys writing it have got a good sense of humour. Probably not the best band out there, but that humour comes through, and it does tend to make you smile when you're listening to the songs. Some of them particularly really made me laugh.
I think it depends on your taste. I mean, we like the Spinal Tap movie, don't we?
We did.
So if you like them, then you'll probably like it.
But I personally wouldn't go out and buy this album. For me and my personal collection, I've given this one a 6 out of 10. The reason being, as I say, musically it's not great. The sense of humour comes through, but that's why I go and see stand-up comedy. Yeah. More than what I want from a musical album. As you said, if I went around someone's house and it was on, or if I was driving along and it was on, it'd be absolutely fine. Personally, I wouldn't put it on because there was... I tend to listen to a lot of my music at home, and some of the language in the album I wouldn't want my kids to listen to because I know that they'd then repeat those words around the grandparents. So
of course they would.
And as I say, it's not a bad album, but it's not one that made me think, I need to own this. So I'm not bothered about having that in my collection.
It's just funny.
But as I say, if you like Blink-182, Bad News, and Spinal Tap, this album will probably get you drooling.
What?
Well, if it's your sort of thing, then you probably quite like that.
I love this album. I've had too much caffeine.
Some albums make me drool. Okay, so the next album we want to talk about is Mr. Big's Defying Gravity. That's out on the 21st of July through Frontiers Music SRL. Mr. Big are best known for the 91 album Lean Into It and 93 album Bump Ahead. They recorded this new album in just 6 days in LA.
It's impressive.
It is impressive. It's usually takes a lot longer to record an album like that, but these guys have been playing together for years, and they've got their formula nailed down quite well. It is the original lineup plus Matt Starr. The reason Matt Starr's appearing on drums is because obviously Pat Torpe's got Parkinson's disease. Yeah. He couldn't play on every song, so Matt Starr filled in for him on the songs he couldn't do. But it's I like the fact that they've not just gone, okay, well, we don't need Pat Torpe because he's ill. They've brought someone in to help out, but they've kept Pat as part of the band, and I think that probably speaks to the kind of band they are, the kind of chemistry. Very few bands are able to stay together in those kind of circumstances. The other situation that comes to mind is the Def Leppard having a one-armed drummer, rather than just getting someone else in this, sticking together. And I think that's a great thing. But that's going off topic. Anyway, this album is a follow-up to 2014, The Stories We Could Tell. There are some good songs on that album.
Yeah, I liked it.
I quite liked 1992, Nothing at All, Damn I'm in Love Again, and Nothing Bad About Feeling Good. The album's got a good rhythm to it, quite bluesy at times.
Yeah, I have to. I was in the other room at the time when you were listening to it. It's usually when I hear most of the songs. And I thought at first it was thunder, didn't I? Before I heard the vocals,
I remember you saying
that kind of rhythm. But especially considering it was only 6 days in recording, I mean that is really good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Eric Martin.
Yeah.
I think he's a great singer. I love some of the other bands he's sang with, some of his solo material as well. So I'm always ready to listen to something that he puts out. But this one I did think was a pretty good album. I think if you like Mr. Big's earlier albums, if you like modern blues rock, then this is an album to check out. I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. As we say, that's out on the 21st of July through Frontiers Records. So that's the Bard's Corner for this week. If you want to know any more about anything we've been talking about, please check out paradiserock.co.uk to keep up to date with more music news.
Tiny Meeples, Big Talk.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Tiny Meeples Big Talk.
Big Talk.
Today, it's all about the Shapper Eye.
Chopper Eye.
The Stargate. We're going to be talking about the Stargate and, of course, Jack O'Neill.
Yeah, he's the main one we're going to talk about because obviously when it got made as a TV programme, he really did kind of carry the show a lot. A much different take on the character of Jack O'Neill.
In Stargate the film, obviously Jack O'Neill was played by Kurt Russell, and he was like the traditional stony-faced soldier.
Yeah.
And I mean,
but
I really like Kurt
his
Russell.
kid had just died.
It had, yeah.
And then in the series, a bit more time had gone past. He'd uncovered his sense of humour again.
Yeah. And but yeah, very different takes on the same character. I mean, I say Kurt Russell is a great actor. He's been in some really great films. Particularly The Thing was probably one of my favourite films that he's done. But
I liked Escape from New York.
The Thing, Escape from New York, excellent. Escape from LA, not so much. But Escape from New York and Snake was just brilliant. And
it's the same guy.
And
the same character, I mean.
Yeah, just the sequel wasn't as good.
Yeah,
but
it's not the character's fault.
But very different takes, obviously, because then Richard Dean Anderson came into it and went with a much more. Yeah, he MacGyvered it in a comedy way. So you've still got the soldier, but he's presented as probably being a little bit more dim and less understanding as the Jack O'Neill in the film.
In a way,
but a lot more comedy.
But he also pretends to be less intelligent than he actually is. That's
he does.
Part of it as well. I mean, like as far as tactics go, you can't really get much better in like perception and stuff like that. He just will not learn facts, and it's almost intentional. He does not want to understand what Carter's saying.
There are times where Carter's trying to explain to him, and he's just. What's
the bottom line?
And in a way, it's kind of almost a little bit of a surprise when you take that into the character that he is the leader of like Earth's first line of defense against alien invasion,
and he is fascinated by space as well. Yeah. And like he knows about the like accretion disk of black holes and stuff like that. It's just. He doesn't kind of carry that interest on into anything else so much. Yeah.
But as a character, he's absolutely fantastic. And like you say, there's so many times where he carries the show because of his personality, his charisma. I mean, the thing is, the whole of SG-1 are a great team. There's good casting choices.
I think so,
They're well acted. The stories that they get, they really explore those 4 characters over the course of the various series.
Well, it's a great team, really, because whatever situation they come up against, there's bound to be one of them that's going to know something. It's very well kind of formulated, because obviously Tilk's the fighter, so is Jack, but Tilk also has like inside knowledge and like what Jafar do and like what the Gould do and things like that. Daniel knows all of the
linguistics,
the
archaeology, the
but
anthropology.
also the legends. That's what I was trying to go for. So it's like Tilk knows he's lived the Jafar life with them all, but then Daniel has like a really good overview of all of them basically, and also he will he will beat them all over the head with morals of something.
And really in many ways Daniel is the heart of the team, isn't he?
But
because
he's the
they go
emotional
into different circumstances, and even Carter is probably more like that than any of the others in the team, but she's still got that military training to fall back on in times, in the sense of, well, I've got to be pragmatic about the situation. We haven't got time to help these people. We've got to do this.
She's a physicist.
Daniel always comes through and makes the team care more, and he's like the conscience of that team, probably more so than any others. Except when he's been made evil by overuse of a sarcophagus.
Yeah, but any of us can fall prey to that. I mean, it's nice and relaxing in there. And it makes you not need your circles of glass, mine are rectangles. Daniel will always bring the emotional argument to it, and it's very similar to the original Star Trek, where Kirk would have to make the decision, but then Spock would give him the logical side, McCoy would give him the emotional side, and then he has to kind of decide between that. And it's very much a little bit like that with SG-1. I mean, Jack, he's got very much just the military background, basically. But the kind of
he
stuff
still does care when it comes to like things like kids.
He definitely does care.
His whole relationship with Skara shows that side of him, and Cassandra, when they find Cassandra on the alien planet.
Yeah. Oh, that was so sad. well, not sad, but because it had a nice ending. But I mean, that was a very emotional episode.
It was.
The bit where she's going.
We all
down the
felt
lift
like
with
Carter
her.
when she was going back in the lift and she was punching
definitely.
the wall. We all wanted to do that when we were watching that part.
Sometimes, like, Jack will know when there's nothing they can do for a certain people or something like that, and we just have to leave basically, and then Daniel just won't, even though logically there's not much they can do. Daniel will want to stay and try anyway against all the odds,
and maybe even try and share the consequences with those people
at
times.
That's
when there's even if he knows there's nothing they can do, he just doesn't want to leave them on their own to face that and suffer that. He wants to be there with them.
Yeah, I mean the very fact he stayed on Abydos.
Yeah,
that's
and Jack has to pull him through the wormhole sometimes to drag him through to save Daniel's own life.
I was thinking about the one with the terraforming machine that's going towards a village of people, and it's got that automated like AI on it. It doesn't really understand, or it just has to terraform it for the unborn lives that are on that machine. And that's quite a good Daniel one, I thought, because he does actually beam up to it to try and have one last chance to reason with this guy, even though he knows that Jack and Sam are going to blow it up in a few minutes. And very much he would risk his own life to try and do what is right, and I think that's a great part of it. It's not just the knowledge and everything. But we were mainly going to talk about O'Neill, but it's just, I think the rest of the team is, we're not kind of dismissing the rest of the team because they are such great characters.
We do love the whole SG-1, and I mean, for me, when I was watching it first time round, it was hard to pick out a favourite character, because I just love them all probably equally for different reasons. Say, when you look at Daniel Jackson, he was like the heart and soul of the team, the emotional side, the EQ
because
side.
of him that the whole project got started anyway.
Yeah, and I must say, that was amazing casting choice to get Michael Shanks
to be James Spader.
Because James Spader was brilliant as Daniel Jackson in the original Stargate the film, and I mean, that guy is an absolutely fantastic actor. And if you've ever watched The Blacklist, he really does carry that show.
I liked him in The Office when he was there as the evil boss. He played mind games with them all. And that was a completely different character again. He's
a great character and a great orator as well, and that comes through particularly in The Blacklist. But I was really pleased that when they did SG-1, they didn't just get a guy that looked just like him.
No.
But they got a guy that could act as well. I mean, when I first saw the
Got a guy that
trailers,
could be a Daniel.
yeah, when I first saw the trailers for SG-1, I actually thought James Spader was in it. Michael Shanks did such a good job.
Right, yeah.
It wasn't until I actually saw the casting list when the show started that.
Well, he
it
did
was...
a lot of sneezing in the first season. So that helps.
And as I say, I mean, Richard Dean. It's kind of funny as well because
Jones is here.
a lot of friends of mine watched the show when it was first on, and for different reasons. You know, some of them really love sci-fi, some of them really loved Richard Dean Anderson. So
yeah, I knew some people that really liked MacGyver before then. It's not really something that I'd really seen, but
and that seemed to bring a lot of fans into the show in its
I
early
like
days.
that Carter made a reference to it in the first episode.
Yeah,
It said they MacGyvered
MacGyvered
the DHC system. Yeah.
And I mean, and then you had my mum who just was in love with Teal'c.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Yeah.
So yeah, hi mum. And yeah,
it was
it was a great series, and you know, we thought we'd talk about in particular some of O'Neill's funnier moments and alternative ways to use the Stargate. So
and it overlaps a little bit, especially in the one that you were watching today.
Like for example, there was times when after the pilot episode when Teal'c saved SG-1 and he brought Teal'c, Jackson and the others brought Teal'c home with him.
Yeah.
And Teal'c's being questioned by Mayborn. And O'Neill just
Mayborn in the first episode?
Not Mayborn, sorry, Samuels. Major Samuels.
Right, yeah.
And and O'Neill comes through. Permission to barge in, sir.
yeah, I like that.
I just love how irreverent he is to, or authority. I mean, in a later episode, I think it's the one again regarding another episode regarding Teal'c when the alien bug's transforming his DNA, and Mayborn wants to take him away, and is in the office. Well, O'Neill, Mayborn, and Hammond are in the office, and O'Neill turns to Hammond and just says, "Permission to beat the crap out of this man, sir."
Yeah. He often he's always threatening to shoot Mayborn into as well, which I think is pretty good.
Oh, I'm not going to hit you. I'm going to shoot you.
I'm going to shoot you. Yeah.
But
yeah, definitely doesn't like him.
No, Mayborn was another character with an interesting story arc and progression in that show. But I think O'Neill's finest moments for me aren't actually when he's on different planets through the Stargate. It's usually when he's on Earth interacting with other people, particularly, as I say, some of his interactions with Samuels, later Mayborn, who basically takes over the role from Samuels, and Senator Kinsey. Some of the
but when he's Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah. And some of these other moments there. I mean, in the actual confines of the SGC, some of his conversations with Hammond are just priceless.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day about some of my favourite comments by him, and I like it when Daniel had just come back from the dead the first time.
We have to clarify which time with Daniel as well. In most series, you wouldn't have to clarify which time someone comes back from the dead. But... Yeah,
it's when he had been ascended, then he tried to kill Anubis, and they'd sent him back with no memory. So basically, that was the main thing. They'd found him and brought him back from the planet where he was sent back. And when they come back into the SGC, Hammond welcomes him back, and then he said, "You really have no idea who I am?" And Daniel says no, and then Jack says, "I don't have any idea either, sir." No, he says, "I don't either, sir." He looks so happy when he says it, and it's just funny. I like that O'Neill one, and there's just so many times, like you said, where he's just kind of irreverent, and I like the amount of times when he says, "Got nothing." That tends to be his catchphrase, really.
I liked some of his bad example moments.
Yeah,
like in Window of Opportunity, when they're stuck in the time loop.
Yeah,
and he's trying to get everyone to believe.
There's a lot of good stuff in that one.
That is probably my favourite episode for those sort of comments. But yeah, they're in the time loop and they're trying to get the other members to believe that that's what's happening, because it's only O'Neill and Teal'c that's going through it. And he's talking to Hammond and Carter. He's like, "Oh, if it was just me, I could believe it. But come on, is this the face of a crazy man?"
Yeah, bad example. Yeah.
And the camera just cuts to Teal'c looking like, Bad example. You know.
Yeah. So that's the time loop one.
Window of opportunity. Yeah.
And isn't that where it also ends up that? So Daniel's talking to him and he's eating his Fruit Loops at the start of each one. He wasn't listening the first time.
That's just how I feel about it.
What do you think? Yeah. And then, but then it turns out that Tilk, every time it loops, he's getting a door opened in his face, and then he just like slams it on the guy, doesn't he?
I like the fact that later on, when I can't remember if it was talking to Tilk or Carter actually, but O'Neill was saying about, you know, that's where he loops into. I was like, you know, the worst thing, I wasn't paying attention the first time.
yeah, I love that, and I like the way they were actually learning as well. I mean, we were talking, well, what we said before, how he just kind of seems to refuse to learn things like on principle almost. Like he wants to just kind of let Carter handle that side of it and Daniel handle the language side. But in that one, Daniel actually just teaches them loads, doesn't he? And the only way they can retain the knowledge is like in their head. But I love the way they're just kind of messing around like naughty kids in a school and just spinning around on their chairs.
Right at the start of that episode, he was asking Carter questions, wasn't he? Because he was like, "Why is it called a wormhole? Where does the worm come in?"
Yeah, I was a bit more interested in it.
Yeah, but there's also a bit in that where they're being examined by Dr. Fraser.
Yeah.
And O'Neill's there going, what in my eye could possibly explain this?
But that's after there's been so many scenes where Dr. Fraser's just looking his eye into it. Yeah. I thought that was pretty good.
I love the way that you see Jackson taking the mick out of O'Neill as well.
Yeah. There's a few times where he just goes, Daniel. And he goes, Jack. Daniel. Just kind of, yeah. I like the way those two get on because they're so different, but they do get on, and it's nice.
I just fancied earlier today watching Window of Opportunity because it always makes me laugh a lot. And there was a scene in there where one of the episodes where they're having a briefing.
Yeah.
And they've already been through that meeting because it's the one of their earlier time.
Yeah.
And he starts talking about like the sun's corona.
Yeah.
And as evidence that, you know, they've already had the briefing. And Carter says, "Oh, you know," he says to them, "Well, how would I have known that if we hadn't already had the meeting?" And Carter says, "Oh, maybe, you know, I don't know, maybe you read it in my report." And Jackson says, "Maybe he read it in your report?"
Yeah.
And just pulls a face.
Because I've been watching the ones when he's the general, and there's a bit where he kind of, they're a bit worried about Carter because she's been a bit kind of quiet, and it's the one where she's kind of worrying about Pete a bit, and she's kind of up late, and Jack kind of comes up to her and says, "Carter, I can't believe these words are going to come out of my mouth, but I need that report." Just like that. And then after they've been talking for a while, he just kind of says, "Carter, I was just joking. I don't really need the report." And
he wasn't
that seems more
anyway.
like him. Yeah. But one of the more recent ones that I really like, this is one of the last few when he was a colonel, and I think it was a last little nice little O'Neill moment, was when he was trying to do that crossword, because he and Carter had this bet that he couldn't finish this crossword, and they had this really important meeting they had to be at. Because Anubis was going to attack Earth and stuff, but Jack was outside in his truck finishing the crossword so he could give it to Carter, and he'd already phoned Daniel in the morning to get some help with it. And then when he gave it to Carter, she was, I can't remember which element it was. I think it was beryllium. I'll have to look up the thing, but she says it asks you the atomic weight of it, and it says the answer's 10. You wrote fat. It's just that is so Jack.
And, you know, there is, I think in a way, there's an element of Jack being the everyman in that show. Because, I say, Carter's got...
I wish I was...
I wish I was O'Neill. But Carter has got the intellect because she's, you know, an experimental astrophysicist.
Yeah.
Daniel's the archaeologist, the linguist.
I mean, they're both scientists, but in very different fields.
Different fields.
Yeah.
Obviously, Teal'c is there. He's obviously not got a great knowledge of Earth culture, but he knows so much about the Jafar, the Goa'uld system lords.
He knows a lot about funny films, though, doesn't he?
Yeah. Whereas O'Neill is kind of like us in that situation. He kind of like represents the viewer. He's asking the questions that we want to ask, like, what does this mean? You know, what's the bottom line here?
Shooting the aliens we want to shoot.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
So, what about all the girls he keeps meeting?
yeah, there's
You know,
that. It's not quite cut.
He's had some quite funny, probably as much as Jackson. Jackson seems to have a girl on every planet at times. But...
I like how when O'Neill points it out. It's like Daniel, you dog. Keep this up, you'll have a girl on every planet. That was when he was turned into a Neanderthal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
Shortly before he ended up agreeing to marry the queen of another planet. You know, he does seem to get a lot of girls. Does Daniel?
Hathor.
Yeah. Oh, that was a funny scene, wasn't it? When
DNA.
most of that DNA will be mine.
Ew. One thing I have to mention about O'Neill is also the pond with no fish.
Yeah.
That he keeps taking them to.
But it does turn out to be a fish at one point.
Pesky fish.
Because he's there with Carter, and you see he's reeling his line in, and then all of a sudden this fish jumps out of the water.
Yeah.
I thought you said this pond had no fish. He goes, mostly. You know, there's just some really great stuff.
I love how much Tilk hated the fishing as well.
Yeah.
But it's nice that they turned up. The last one I watched, the last but one. They were all at the little fishing pond, and it's just nice to have them all kind of hanging out, doing stuff that the others of them hate, but Jack likes for some reason. It's just relaxing.
So yeah, if you want to watch a TV show that's got some really good different topics, because I mean, even in series 1 there were so many different themes coming through that series.
It's got good internal harmony. That's what I like about Stargate. I mean, if they come up with an innovation in one episode, they don't tend to forget it in another one. It kind of carries over. They are trying to find new technology to be able to use to fight the Gould. There's a few things you have to kind of get over earlier on, like the fact that everybody speaks English, stuff like that. But
I'll come back to that in a
I know
moment.
there'll be ridiculous things where people can say why it works, but it's just a thing in the program, and you forget after a while, and you don't mind so much.
Well, yeah, well, there were different theories as to why that happened.
Yeah, but they're all stupid. I've read a few of them.
Well, I'll come to that in a second. One used to be that just the fact that you couldn't have Daniel learning a new alien language every episode.
That's
it would just slow it
obviously
down.
why.
That's obviously why.
Because it's 45 minutes an adventure.
But also the show's producer said that when you could travel through the Stargate, obviously your molecules are dismantled, aren't they? And then, much like the transporter system in Star Trek,
Yeah,
you're
you're
disassembled and then you're reassembled
A new
on another
person gets-
planet. Yeah. But the Stargate system,
Never use
when
it.
you're reassembled, it incorporates tiny molecular nanites into your bloodstream, which act as like a translator as you go through to that planet.
If you want that to be it, say it in the program.
Yeah, it was never really said in the program.
That's because he made it up off the cuff to try and explain away the very logical production reasons why they didn't have different.
It
Yeah,
never
if it
bothered
explains-
me, to be honest, because it sort of
It bothers you on the third episode. That's the point where you realise, hang on a minute, everybody's speaking English. For me, anyway. Because in the first episode, people were speaking Gould as well.
Yeah.
And it wasn't quite so obvious. But I think it's on the third one, there's all the Mongolians who try to
That's
steal
where I
Carter.
first thought about
because
why are the Mongolians speaking English.
It kind of slaps you in the face on that
Yeah.
episode. But then after a few more episodes, you are just kind of into the story. And like I say, the internal harmony is what's more important.
I used to think, because they had the iris, didn't they? That closed over the Stargate. And obviously, as the unstable vortex was rushing out towards people from the gate, it just evaporated everything in it. Why doesn't that just go straight through the iris?
Yeah, it's because it's so near to the event horizon, isn't it?
Well, I just thought I also thought that it was probably because it was a production decision, but there you go.
I used to kind of think that kind of thing as well. But just Carter's explanation of it being so close to the event horizon that nothing can kind of...
Has a chance to form.
It has a chance to form, and I thought that would apply to the thing as well. Whatever it is, that blast that comes out of it. I think that's quite a nice aspect of it, because you could have the gate just kind of forming.
Yeah.
But I like the way they always have that blast coming.
Yeah, and that's
really
actually
cool.
quite important in later episodes as well, isn't it?
It
that
is.
that happens,
Yeah.
and you kind of wonder how much of that was pre-planned or if that was just,
It was just an effect in the
effect
film, I
in the
think.
film, and
but
it
I'm
just
glad they
looks
stuck with
cool.
it. Yeah.
It always just looks cool, though, doesn't
It
it?
does, yeah. And the most recent one I watched, which I meant to mention earlier, because I watched it yesterday, and it is one that I've always remembered. It's when it turned out he'd been having visions of the life of a barber for years. This barber had been having visions of O'Neill's life, and then it turns out, so, well, you must have been having visions of this guy's life as well, and it turned out he had, and he just hadn't mentioned it to anybody.
For like 7 years or
Yeah,
something.
I thought that was good, and I've always remembered that as well, because when you watch the series after that, and you watch it from the first series, you kind of thinking like, this has already started at this point. I just think that in his spare time, and he was having these flashbacks, well, not flashbacks, just these visions of this guy's very ordinary life. And as he said in season 8, he found it relaxing. So
I think, if you are being shot at by alien aggressors on a weekly basis and saving the Earth frequently, and you're watching one of your best friends constantly die and come back to life, sometimes you're going to want something that's just nice, simple and relaxing, and having visions of a guy cutting hair is probably what helped keep him so grounded over all those years. The other thing we were going to talk about, alternative uses for a Stargate.
Oh yeah, innovative. The thing I thought about was on that Mitchell and Webb sketch, where there's like, it's on the Mitchell and Webb sound, where there's like an office and they've got their own Stargate, and they keep being these announcements about what not to use the Stargate for, like for throwing your rubbish through it and everything, and not bullying the aliens on the other side, not urinating into the Stargate, things like that. But I just kind of thought that using it to get rid of rubbish. I mean, if you knew it was opening out onto like near the surface of a star or something like that,
well, this is
you could dump all of Earth's rubbish into it, and you'd know it was going somewhere where it just get incinerated.
I mean, I was thinking, because it was quite interesting actually at the time. In one of the later episodes, you see one of the shuttles go through a gate and come out in space, and they've got like a Stargate in space.
But that happens all
ships.
the time on Atlantis, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you have the puddle jumpers that just go through, and they have to check whether the gate is a land one or an orbit one before they go through it, don't they?
And that was something that was more it was a regular thing on Atlantis, but it only ever happened like very, very rarely in Stargate SG-1. And I thought, if you had a Stargate that opened up near a sun, that you could just use it to dispose of your waste and everything. Or have a landfill planet. You just when it finally gets so chock-a-block that it starts to collapse near the Stargate. Every time the Stargate punches, it opens up new space for more rubbish.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
And of course, playing golf.
Yeah, which O'Neill and Tilk did on the episode that you just watched.
Yeah, and he got shouted at. Didn't he?
Yeah. And then he shouts back at Hammond, doesn't he?
That is one of my favourite episodes. But yeah, there's other things as well. Friend of mine, Bryony, made the point. You could send through people that were annoying. You
could do.
People that were being naughty in thy sight.
Which they did do in Stargate sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, they let Mayborn stay through the gate, didn't they? Even though he kind of snuck through or something. And Anubis, when he kind of turned up as like a weird entity that was jumping between different bodies, then they let him go through the Stargate, but he was on that frozen world and he just froze solid on the other side.
I was thinking it would be great for talent shows. So, for example, I mean, you get like shows like The X Factor and Pop Idol, and you see people going on there convinced they can sing, and all their friends and family are like, "Oh yeah, you're a great singer. Believe in yourself. Go on this show and compete." I think people would be a lot more hesitant to, encourage people to sing if the people that failed were being sent through to a replicator planet.
Yeah, well, that's just an execution. I mean, you could just have a firing squad.
It's not technically an execution, because you're not killing them. You're just sending them to another planet.
Yeah, because okay. So you're like the Starks because you're not swinging the sword. Yeah.
I think it's it would be interesting, wouldn't it? You could
I'd
say,
rather not use it to kill people, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, you could send them through to be, hosts for the
For the Gold?
Tok'ra or for the Goa'uld.
For the Tok'ra. Yeah, I really like the Tok'ra.
I do like the Tok'ra.
Yeah, Jack hates them.
And there's a lot of possibilities with a Stargate.
I think one of the problems with it is that it is only one way, and that is. I think it's good that the Stargate has that limitation, because otherwise there'd be all kinds of crazy uses for it, wouldn't there? I mean, you could just
imagine playing like tennis or something through the Stargate.
Yeah, I mean that would be
through a two-way
cool.
Stargate.
Yeah, obviously communication's pretty good because it goes two ways, doesn't it? Electromagnetism can go through it two ways, so you could use it to, even if you weren't going through it, use it to communicate with people on the other side of the world, of the universe as well. I think the other limitation of it is that you can only basically have one per planet, can't you? Because it kind of goes to the nearest one. Yeah. I know Earth's got two, but if you try to dial the other one, you get the busy signal, as they call it. So you have to think of like going somewhere far enough away, don't you? So that you can actually use the gate. But I think there has been some innovative uses of it in the program itself, like when Carter basically used it to blow up a sun by like dropping an open gate into the corona, into the mantle of into the sun, and
it drew the energy through.
It drew enough matter in that it kind of changed the Schwarzschild radius and kind of collapse it and make it kind of supernova. I think it did. So I thought that was quite innovative in one way. There's not many everyday uses you can have for it. It's too big and unwieldy.
I thought what was interesting was because there was an episode in, I think it was series 1 with the prison world.
Yeah, where they were feeding people through it.
They were feeding people through it, so you could use it as a food delivery system.
Yeah, you could.
Imagine if you could like miniaturize the Stargate technology, so it could be within a planet, and everyone had one in their house.
Yeah.
Deliveries would be instantaneous. You could order a pizza and it'd come flying through a wormhole.
Yeah,
Soup would be a problem.
Well, it wasn't a problem for them guys. Just had the trough.
No, you had the trough when it came down.
Which is a bit weird because
you could have inescapable prisons, couldn't you?
You could. Yeah, I mean it didn't work so well for them guys, but because
you just don't send a genius through.
Yeah, don't send that destroyer of worlds through there. That did give me another idea about disposing of things you don't want. Rather than sending it somewhere else, you just dial it up and throw whatever you don't like into the big splash that comes out, because that does completely destroy the thing, doesn't it? I think some radiation comes off, but it doesn't seem to be harmful, does it? Because
not if you're not in the splash. If you're in the splash, it's pretty harmful.
Well, I just mean to be around.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because
no one was getting Stargate sickness, were they?
Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, the amount of times when loads of Jafar or somebody slams into the iris, and obviously they're gone.
Yeah.
The matter had to go somewhere. I mean, it came through. Radiation comes off because you can scan the radiation that comes off the iris. But obviously it's not harmful, because otherwise they would all be ill. The amount of times that's happened. So, yeah. I think you could use... The main innovative use, I think, is to destroy things of the Stargate.
Yeah, it does have brilliant destructive capabilities.
Yeah, but I think the ordinary use of the Stargate is the best, just going between different worlds. And the fact that they were set up by the ancients and they're all put on planets with an atmosphere and ones where humans can survive, for the most part.
Because even the ones that they go through that aren't actually inhabitable were habitable when the Stargate system was originally put in there. It's just the natural planets.
So out of the billions of planets that there are, I mean, they all lead to ones that you can actually survive on. So yeah, and I love all the worlds that they go to. And they're so often in a beautiful forest, aren't they? And it'd be nice just to be able to have your own Stargate and just go to different places like that for a holiday. Like whenever you feel like I'm off to P3X181 or whatever.
I quite liked it as well when the Russians got the gate.
What, and they had that water world on the other side with the energy coming out of it.
That was pretty cool.
I like that. Yeah. That was cool.
But yeah, as I was saying, there are definitely. I mean, it's quite interesting the way they explored some of those innovative uses in
I think there was more innovative uses in Atlantis when I think about the stuff McKay did with it, like making that bridge between galaxies. So basically, just dropping gates in between the Milky Way and the Pegasus galaxy, and then you go through the buffer. You kind of walk through one gate, and then you just kind of forward to the buffer of each one till you get to Earth, and you just come out of the gate. That was a really cool idea.
And there are. I mean, I do think that when you look at the gate, it's a beautiful thing to look at as well, with the different symbols, the chevrons.
I mean, they keep calling it an ancient artifact, don't they? And it does look like that. Yeah.
So please, if you're a fan of the show, drop us some comments below and let us know what some of your favourite O'Neill moments are.
There's so many more, isn't there?
Stay meddlesome.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's time to talk about books with the Meddlesome Meeples.
Welcome to this episode of Tome Talk, where Richard is going to be talking to us about Hyperion by Dan Simmons.
Yep, and that's not to be confused with Hyperion by Keats, which is quite heavily referenced in this.
Right.
So it's not just that it's got the same title. So Hyperion refers to a planet, and it's one that's right outside of the galactic civilization. So if you imagine like Tatooine, that kind of a place. So in this universe that Dan Simmons has created, it's incredibly in depth, and he's obviously put a lot of thought into like how the government works and everything there. They have got what they call a world web, and that is mostly controlled by these things called farcasters, which, I mean, we're going to be talking about Stargates a bit later. They're a little bit like that, but not quite.
So we're going with the theme.
Yeah, we are kind of. But with the planet Hyperion, that's not connected to this world web. If you want to get there, you have to go on a ship that uses a hawking drive. And
hawking drive?
Yep, that's what they call it. And you incur...
In honour of the man?
Yeah. Well, there's already hawking radiation, isn't there? That hasn't really been proved yet, so I don't know how this hawking drive would work, but you incur a time debt when you go. You have to go into stasis, so you have to basically spend months getting to Hyperion. And this book is about 7 people who are making the journey to Hyperion to go on a pilgrimage. And it's a pilgrimage to these things called the Time Tombs, which have recently started to open on Hyperion. And there is a creature that comes from the Time Tombs called the Shrike, and that has been there for hundreds of years. It's horrible. It is basically, I can't remember how tall they said it was. It might be like 3 meters tall, and it looks like a metal person with 4 arms and spikes all over it. And like a lot of the time, monsters tend to, I think, have some kind of biological traits that are quite scary. The Shrike seems to be based on physics.
Okay.
It has like some kind of powers over time. And I thought when I was reading it and really seeing the kind of things the Shrike could do, I was imagining it being in one of our games, like our cooperative ones. And I just thought, well, if the Shrike was one of the miniatures that we had, we'd like set up all the game only to find out that it killed us all before we even took the box off the shelf, because that is the kind of thing you're dealing with this thing. Basically, it has infinite time to be able to do things because it can have control over time. And like I say, it is mysterious. They don't know where this Shrike has come from. And the people are actually going on a pilgrimage to the Time Tombs to ask the Shrike for something. And that might seem really weird, and it is.
So basically it's like a deadly killer that's giving out free advice and gifts.
Yeah, this is the thing. So these
it's
people
evil Santa. You brought a book about evil Santa.
Yeah, he is kind of evil Santa. Yeah.
Sorry, kids.
But he is incredibly evil. Now, the idea is, because there is this Church of the Shrike, there's lots of themes of religion in this book, which I'm kind of going to get to when I go into the characters in a little bit more detail. But basically, these people have been allowed to go on this pilgrimage by the Church of the Shrike, which has like cathedrals on all the planets in the web. Because ever since humanity has kind of spread out to the stars, and they have all these different colonies and different worlds, as soon as they found the Shrike and the Time Tombs, then a religion did form around it. And that was like 400 years ago. So it's very well established.
It's interesting that I thought that an advanced society would still look to religion.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's one of the themes that really does come out in this book, because
Because typically when we think about science fiction, we think about futuristic races, high intellect. Religion is very rarely part of it. I mean, there are times where we go to like certain species in Star Trek. The Klingons can be quite religious in their own way, can't they? Or spiritual, perhaps, is probably the better way of defining that.
But you don't find that so much in the humans, do you?
No, the human societies seem to have moved away. I mean, the Bajorans are probably the most religious that we could think of, but they're also like they're kind of like the least advanced in a lot of ways to the other species. But then it tends to be more the alien races, and again, when we're thinking about Stargate, which we're going to be talking about in Tiny Meeple's Big Talk.
A lot of religion there.
A lot of religion in there, typically in a very negative light, in the sense of deceit carried out, because you've got the Goa'uld, who are obviously impersonating various deities, but then you've also got some of the ones worshipped by the other races who are taking the role of good gods from Earth, aren't they? That are there to protect and help and guide people. So it's always quite interesting when you get, to me anyway, when you get like this religious dynamic of within a futuristic species.
This is the thing, I mean, I've got the Fall of Hyperion here as well, and it's just what is it? It says, here is a superb vision of future technology and ancient religions, of scientific revelation and timeless mystery. And that really, I liked that. I haven't read this one yet.
Nice expression.
Yeah, but that really sums up the first book as well, incredibly well.
Because it's quite nice when you see like the future technology is merged with the beliefs of the past.
Yeah, that's it. And it's not just religions of the past, although they are in there. Obviously, the Shrike was so baffling when the humans found it, that it's obvious that a religion would form around it. Now they're called the Church of the Shrike, but they don't really like to be called that. They are called the Church of the Final Atonement, and they have this idea.
That sounds nice.
I know. Well,
they sound jolly.
Well, they're worshipping like what they call the Lord of Pain, which is what their other name for the Shrike. They also call it
we're into
the Avatar.
Warhammer territory now, are we?
Yeah, and it is that kind of scary as well. And so obviously there is that religion, so that's the new one, but two of the characters are quite religious as well, of the 7 that are on this pilgrimage. One of them is a Catholic priest, and he has had to deal with his fears of the church kind of collapsing.
Church, you mean? The Catholic
his church? The Catholic, yeah, because obviously, like you were saying, as humankind becomes more advanced and gone to different worlds, religion becomes less relevant. And it's got those kind of worries. And another character is Jewish, and he hasn't been all that religious for most of his life, but he starts getting these visions of, well, I don't want to, this happens near the beginning of his tale, but so it's not really a spoiler, but he has this vision of the Shrike telling him to bring his daughter to Hyperion to offer her as a burnt offering. Like, it's similar to Abraham, you know, so he starts really thinking about religion loads at that point, and that's the
as you would.
That is the kind of rubbish that this Shrike gets up to. It is a terrifying, not just in a physical way, but it will mess with people psychologically as well. And yeah, basically it's a lot like, well, I know it's very obvious that Dan Simmons wrote this as being a sci-fi Canterbury Tales, basically. So they're on this pilgrimage, and on the way they are telling their stories about how they, like, the reasons why they are personally going on this pilgrimage. Basically, out of all the applicants in the galaxy, they are the 7 people that have been picked by the Church of the Shrike to be able to go on this journey. They can't land.
Do they
right next
travel
to it.
together then, or is it charting like separate?
No, it's when they are together. I mean, they meet on this first day, and they're like, "Oh, so we're the 7 that have been picked." So it has to be a prime number, apparently. So they are just kind of trying to decide how they're going to get along while they make this journey of a few days, and they have a vote about whether or not they should tell their stories. And a few of them kind of get voted out. It ends up with them being, they are going to tell the stories, and then they kind of draw lots for the numbers. So it ends up being Father Hoyt, the Catholic priest, who goes first, and his story is pretty horrifying. It is basically a horror story, and I mean, I read this when I was quite a bit younger, and it was almost too much for me, that one. It was very much about... It's a very Catholic story about like faith and pain, and
would you say that, when you say it's a very Catholic story, would you think that listeners who maybe aren't interested in... Because obviously religion's quite a divisive subject.
Yeah.
You know, some people won't be interested in religion. Would you say that if you were very secularly minded, that you would still enjoy this book for the story that it's telling?
Oh, definitely, yeah, because it's only 2. Well, that's the only one out of the... There's supposed to be 7 stories, really, but there ends up being only 6 just for circumstances. So there's basically... This is like 6 novellas rather than... And then they're kind of put together into one novel with a framing device. So, yeah, it's only one out of those.
Yeah.
And it is a fascinating story, that first one. I'm just saying that it is. It's just the themes are very much. They just seem very Catholic.
I suppose
me,
that's
what
to be expected, though. If he's writing, if one of the characters is a Catholic priest, that is going to come through in his story.
Yeah, that's it. Just,
You know.
yeah, basically just the themes. You have to really try and think of a way to explain it without kind of giving away any spoilers. But yeah, and that one is actually written in the first person. Now, they do alternate. So that one's on the first person. The next one is General Cassard. And thinking about it, actually, he's a Muslim, I think, or was from a Muslim background. But he's not religious as well, so that doesn't really come through. Not so much. His story is one of like interstellar warfare.
Yeah.
And his one is told in the third person. And I think that works really well because his one's like more like an action adventure. It's still pretty scary. Not as bad as Father Hoyt's one, but and that one is brilliant.
And when you say interstellar, are these characters all from Earth, or are they from various Earth colonies, would you say?
Most various Earth colonies. There's only one character that can claim to be from Earth. The other characters don't really believe him because apparently Earth has been dead for hundreds of years. But
okay, that was probably something I should have known before we...
Well, it comes out slightly in...
I haven't researched this book at all. I'm just relying purely on Richard's
storytelling. Yeah, that's
the
thing. But, I mean, there's a reason why I didn't particularly mention that, and that's because it's only ever kind of alluded to a little bit in the book.
Right.
So that's the main thing. Yeah, they're mostly from all over the place. Obviously, during the time of the book, they're all on Hyperion, making this journey, but their stories go all over the galaxy. And yeah, so the first one was about the priest. The second one, it's about the soldier, general. And then the other ones, I don't want to just kind of list them, but one of them is like a murder mystery. One of them, the story of Sol Weintraub, the Jewish man who's a lecturer at a university. That one is incredibly sad, and it's almost too sad. That one, it's mostly about his daughter, and you, it's just that these different stories seem to be different genres. So that's why I think this is such a fascinating book, because if one of the stories doesn't particularly appeal to you, and some of them I did find a little bit hard to get through, because they are incredibly detailed, and it's a long book, and these stories are substantial, and they do stick with just the one story just for a while, and then it's not like a lot of novels tend to jump around between scenes, don't they? Whereas this one, it sticks with one, and then that's done, and then the next person starts telling their stories. Yeah,
it's kind of like several books in one, really. And
yeah, it is.
Genres. So in a way, that's interesting, because that means there's probably going to be something there for everybody.
There is, yeah, and it is worth getting through it all, because you do learn a little bit more about the Shrike each time, because every one of them, they have a reason for going to this planet, and it's hard to imagine why anybody would go on this pilgrimage, because basically the mythology is the Shrike will grant one of them a wish, and he'll kill the others, kill all the others.
Okay.
And he has apparently this metal tree that he spikes people on, and the time tombs are travelling backwards through time. So basically, it's already happened. it just hasn't happened for them yet. So it's basically their fate is already sealed, and it is. Yeah, it's just an incredibly interesting book. You're never going to really understand what this creature is, how it does what it does, what the time tombs are, things like that. You just have to accept that. But through the stories, you do learn a little bit more about the universe that they are all in and the characters they are. I was surprised, actually, that the poet's tale, I thought that was the most interesting one. That was like an odyssey. Like, he led such a long life. Partly because he spent so long travelling around in stasis, so he like saw hundreds of years of history. Because when he thaws out, loads of things have changed. But he lived an incredibly diverse life. I mean, sometimes he just was completely sold out, and he was just writing these trashy novels, and he had this really amazing house that had loads of farcasters. So he had like this 38-room house, and each room was on a different planet. And it was basically you could go between portals to the different rooms. I thought that was an amazing idea.
I love the idea of that.
I am looking forward to reading The Fall of Hyperion, which I have here. I think this picture on the front might be the Shrike. There was a very spiky head on there. And the way this one went, it was mostly the pilgrimage. And I'll just be interested to see where this picks up. I think there is a third one that might be called Endymion. Still heavily Keats influence. So on the planet Hyperion, the main city there is called Keats because there was a colony of artists that all went there, and it's there's so much to talk about this book, but mostly just as an overview, it's told in several different voices because it's from several different characters' points of view. It's about a very comprehensible and well thought out galactic system and galactic government. The characters are interesting and very diverse. They don't get on with each other very well, like on their pilgrimage, which is only to be expected.
Well, they know that the others are all going to die, possibly. They're hoping to be the one that survives and everyone else dies. So
yeah, that's it.
That's not going to make for good relationships, is it?
Yeah, not really. With it being told in so many different voices, I think he's done a real good job of making the characters a bit more three-dimensional, because it's not just that there's mainly one main character and then the other characters are kind of seen through that person's eyes.
So it's going to kind of make you care about all these characters. And
and it is amazing once you've read the tale of a few of them, when it gets to kind of between tales later on, and you hear that character kind of make a comment about somebody else's tale and stuff, you feel like you really know that character really well, and it's interesting to see how they react to each one. Like they thought their tale was harrowing, and then they hear the tale of another person, and they like come out in sympathy to them because of what's been done to them as well. So yeah, I think this is an incredibly interesting book, just for many different reasons, which I hope I've managed to explain all of them. I'm going to be interested to read The Fall of Hyperion. Obviously, that is also an epic, it seems. I mean, that one looks very thick. Like I say, I think there's Endymion as well, so we're looking forward to going through that. But I think next I'll probably read something a little bit lighter.
Well, you've gone through quite a lot of dystopian novels and a lot of tragic novels lately.
Yeah.
I think I express this on behalf of myself and, of course, all of our viewers and listeners. We are worried about you. So
Okay.
I've been getting emails.
Well, it's difficult to... Yeah.
Is Richard okay?
Yeah.
That's what people want to know. Is Richard okay?
Well, the thing is, it's nice to know that we don't have to live in these worlds.
Yeah.
And it makes you appreciate what you have a bit more. My next one, I'm not sure if it's dystopian or not. It's I've got one by Philip K. Dick, which I haven't read before. I've read his Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which obviously is Blade Runner. But I haven't read this particular one, which is called Counterclock World.
Yep.
And I thought that just seemed like an interesting idea. I think it's about different realities. So, that's very much like the Ursula Le Guin one that I read before and I really enjoyed.
Lathe of Heaven.
Yeah, Lathe of Heaven. That wasn't too dystopian. I mean, that was about dreams and things. So, yeah, hopefully not quite as depressing next time. But, it's just... a lot of these stories are going to sound like that. I mean, you're one about the Aztec Empire as well. I mean, that's not exactly optimistic. I think so.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that.
Interesting stories generally are set in pretty terrible universe. I mean, look at Star Wars with the Empire, things like that. You know.
True. So there we are. So I'll be talking about a book on our next episode of Tome Talk.
Do you know what it is yet?
I don't know what it is yet. And then Richard will be back with his dick book.
Why do you have to do it? Yeah, I'll be back talking about Counterclock World in a month.
By Philip Dick.
By Philip K. Dick.
Yeah. What does the K stand for?
I don't know. It's always just been a middle initial. A lot of sci-fi writers will have a middle initial. I just think it's interesting that Ian Banks, when he writes sci-fi, has to have an M in the middle of his name.
Ian
and the rest of the time he doesn't. So yeah.
Richard approves. What about you? Well, that was fun. Let's carry on with the show. The Meeples Alive!
So that's our show. We hope you enjoyed it. Please stop by our Facebook page and say hi.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Is that it?
That,
As they say.
is all she wrote. Okay. Goodbye.
Farewell, Quester, and thanks for joining us. If you wish to avoid the wrath of Greyskarn The Black, then subscribe to our show before you depart. Our fortress is located at meddlesomemeeples.com, or join our banners by rendezvousing with us at facebook.com/Meddlesome Meeples, instagram.com/The Meddlesome Meeples, or follow the flight of the mountain bluebird to @Meddlesome Meeples. Until next time, Quester, farewell, and keep thine axe sharp.